Welcome back to Entrepreneur Money Stories. Today we have Paige on the show. Paige is the founder of The Legal Page, a virtual legal educational platform for small businesses. She is a certified Juris Doctor and holds a double BA in economics and political science, aka she knows her stuff. After working as a federal law clerk, Paige traded in the traditional law life for a virtual one and opened the doors to The Legal Page in 2018. She helps her clients and online community run legal and protected businesses through her contract shop, podcast, YouTube channel, and blog. Her mission is to create an online space where the law isn't so scary and entrepreneurs can get legally legit in no time. Law aside, Paige is a Montana mama who loves hiking and lake time. I am so excited to have Paige on the show today. We're going to cover a lot of the topics that we have covered on this podcast from a tax perspective, and we're going to get Paige's thoughts, opinions, and guidance from a legal perspective. So stay tuned, and here is my conversation with Paige. Paige, welcome to Entrepreneur Money Stories.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is kind of my dream situation. Accountants and attorneys talking to each other, right? Every creative out there is like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's our ideal world, and we could probably chit chat all day long. And for everyone else, we will try to just make it as easily digestible as possible for you all.
Yeah. Well, I've listened to your podcast for a long time, so I know that you do a really great job at doing that. So I'm really excited to have you here. We were chatting briefly before we hit record. A lot of our clients and listeners, they are amazing practitioners. And I think the other one I see is accidental entrepreneurs, really awesome at our craft. And then all of a sudden we are entrepreneurs running a business and nobody trained us on the business side of running a business. So I'm sure you hear this all day, every day.
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, this is why I started The Legal Page is, I was in the photography world, in the wedding industry world. I talked to people in the industry. I knew that there was a ton of pain points surrounding not only the legal side of business, but of course the tax side of business as well. We are creatives at heart. We really just care about our craft and kind of all of the deliverables and everything that we're creating for our clients. But the back end side of things tends to get lost a little bit or is not a huge priority. Then at the end of the year, you're like, oh, actually, this is a priority.
Yeah.
So I just try to keep people educated on it as much as possible and make sure that they have kind of all of their legal and tax ducks in a row so that they don't really have to worry about it. And it's not like a looming thing over their head.
Absolutely love your mission. Well, tell me, what are you finding today are the kind of the top legal mistakes that you are seeing business owners, accidental entrepreneurs? What are you seeing them making? I know the industry has shifted, times are changing. What are you seeing now?
Even though times are changing, I still see the exact same issues popping up for newer business owners. It's really just, it's as simple as it's hard to know what you need to know to get started. And so you're really just trying to get your business out there, get it marketed, get clients, right? That's the name of the game when you're starting a business. Have some type of profit in place, or at least cover your, overhead costs for the first year of business. Because as you and I both know, lots of businesses don't make money in the first couple of years. They're just trying to get up and running. So at the beginning, I always see people really, and I know we're going to dive into this in a little bit more in depth here in the podcast. But I see people making the mistake of not knowing how to register their business or if they even need to register their business, and then a separate bank account for their money. It really doesn't matter what year we are in. Everyone who's an accidental entrepreneur, as you say, or a newer business owner, a lot of times they're commingling funds at the beginning, which you and I both know is okay. It's okay to do, but at a certain point, if you're going to give this a go and it's not a side hustle anymore and you are making a decent amount of profit every month, and decent, we're talking here, $500 to $1,000. It doesn't have to be much. That really is a business.
Yeah.
And at that point, just for all intensive purposes, for organization, for getting all of your finances figured out in advance versus backpedaling every year for tax purposes, having that separate bank account for your money is really important. And with that, hand in hand, I always like to say, why not just get your LLC set up in your state to begin with so that that bank account can be in the LLC's name so that you have the money side of things handled, but you also have the legal side of things handled with the LLC. It creates a separate entity from you, and you're not commingling things between your personal and business finances anymore. So that's number one. Number two is just good business and equipment insurance. I feel like everyone forgets about the insurance side of things. You can self-insure. Of course you can, and lots of people do up to a certain point. But once you have, a few $1,000s in business assets, that's definitely worth it to insure your gear and equipment. And then once you start getting more and more clients, your liability and risk increases. And it's 100% worth it to get a very small business insurance policy for any negligence happenings.
So at what point do we need an insurance policy? Because I am shocked. We're in the books of so many businesses, and I can't tell you how many times I do not see an expense line item for business insurance. So at what point, what revenue marker do you see that's like,
it's not a revenue marker. I think it's when your business is a go, you need to get business insurance.
Thank you. I love it. We didn't even talk about this beforehand. And I asked you this question, and I really prefaced it for like, what's today? And I love that you've said the basics, and it doesn't matter from day one, because that is, I'm always preaching, it does not matter. It doesn't matter what year it is. We have to have the basics in place to protect our business. And we'll go more into LLC and whatnot. But for business insurance, it doesn't matter. When you are a business, you have to take responsibility as a business owner.
Yeah, 100%. And clients are getting smarter and smarter. So they're going to ask for things, and you don't want to have to dive into, your checking account to figure out refunds, or, if something were to, you just never know. It's not an if, it's a when. And I always tell people that. So why not be prepared for the when? I like to think of it, an analogy like driving. We shouldn't be driving cars without insurance because it's required by law. I wish business insurance was required by law, but I like to tell people, think of it as the same, one and of the same. If you're going to start a business, these are the things you need to do right at the beginning. And they're really simple. They're not difficult. Get your LLC set up, get a business bank account, get insurance that we just talked about. It's like, of course, a tiny bit cumbersome. Like, it's just annoying. And I think that's why people don't do it. You have to get a couple quotes, decide on a quote, sign some paperwork.
But once you do it once, it's in place. It's not something you have to do monthly.
Set up automatic payments. It's just like car insurance. So just think about it as the same thing. You're protecting yourself from the whens. And if you're a very, very risky business owner, and a lot of entrepreneurs are, I think they just live in the if world, and they're not willing to pay for business insurance. It's not a line item expense that they want to put on their P&L. So again, we do not recommend that here. You're talking to a lawyer who's been in the industry for over a decade, and an accountant who is very well versed in her craft as well. So definitely take our head on this. And the very last thing is contracts. So it's not a surprise. I'm a contract lawyer. I could talk about contracts all day long, and your insurance is only going to get you as far as negligence. Your contracts are going to protect you regarding all of your business policies, how you're setting up your relationship with your clients, the services you provide, or the tangible assets that you're delivering to them. So not having contracts written by a lawyer is one of the biggest mistakes I see business.
So we can't go on the internet and Google contracts.
Right. I mean, they do. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying you shouldn't do it because it's so easy to find templates out there, but you have no idea if they're written for your particular type of business, what clauses actually really need to be included. Provisions in your contract is another way of saying that, and is written by a lawyer who actually understands what your business does, what it needs, and the risks and liabilities involved. So AI is a big thing right now. ChatGPT, it's not a lawyer. Okay.
Oh, ChatGPT could not be your attorney.
It did pass the bar, but it's not a lawyer. So everyone's just thinking like we can find templates, put it in, to AI, create our own stuff. You can. I'm not saying you can't. And that's the one thing that we have in the United States is the freedom to contract. You can create a somewhat enforceable contract by writing it yourself. But are all the provisions going to be valid? Is it actually going to hold up if an issue comes up with a client?
Do you understand your own contract? I think that for me has always been something that I wanted to make sure that I was making the decision. And if I'm just buying something, a template online, I don't know what their core values were, the person who wrote that, what's important to them, what decisions have they made. And I want to be able to, as a business owner, have a contract that aligns with my core values and what I want to have protected and in the way that I want it protected. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. I always say this phrase out loud. Your contracts are only as good as your willingness to enforce it. And you can't enforce a contract that you have if you don't understand the contract. And understanding the contract helps you, have a better relationship with clients at the beginning, setting that legal foundation at the beginning. Because if they ask you questions, you want to be able to quickly respond to them with the correct answer regarding why you have that in your contract. And so if you know from the get-go why your contract is laid out the way it is, why you have that language in there, it should be easy to understand. Your contract should not be complicated. It should be written in plain language. You should understand it. Your client should understand it. There should really be no questions. Your contract should be pretty simple in terms of organization and readability. And then it's way, way easier to enforce your contracts and set those boundaries with clients. So those are my big four that I would say to answer your first question.
You mentioned client contracts, but what are our top contracts that we need to have in place? Sounds like with our clients and customers, any other top contracts that you can think of that we need to have?
Main client service agreement for many of your listeners, I'm guessing they're service providers. And that's the main one that everyone always has to begin their business. I think we just know, right? If we're going to take hundreds or thousands of dollars from somebody, we need a contract in place. So I call that MSA, for all intents and purposes, master service agreement or main client service agreement. And then if you have a website terms and conditions, if you, are amending or adding anything to a contract addendum and amendments is really, really good to have. And then the other ones that I talk about a lot are cancellation and rescheduling agreements. It's like having that core contract, but knowing what to do with it in various scenarios that could pop up with your clients.
Yeah. I think post-COVID, we've all learned refunds and cancellations.
Exactly. We all realized, we don't have those in our legal toolkit. So most people have at least a small cancellation contract or a small rescheduling contract, say in their legal tool belt, so that they can use it when needed. Contract addendums and amendments, I think people do a lot of times just via email. It's okay, but it's not 100% legally sufficient. There can be issues with emails and confusion with emails if you were to amend something without people signing on to it. So it's just another couple one-page documents that are really simple to set up on the back end for you.
Talk to me a little bit about 1099s and contractors. I've talked about the contractor versus employee relationship a lot on this podcast from a tax and accounting bookkeeping perspective, but we're on contract. So let's continue to go there. What type of contracts do we need to have in place for both of these?
Yeah, great question. So of course, if you're hiring an employee, you need an employee agreement. So I call these worker agreements. Usually these aren't going to happen right away if you're just starting out in business, but as your business grows and scales, you're going to add more workers on and you need to designate them properly for tax purposes, but for legal purposes as well. They go hand in hand. People, if they have an issue with you improperly designating them, say, as a contractor when they really should be an employee, it's going to not only affect your taxes, but it's going to affect the legal side of your business because you didn't set them up properly. A employee needs an employee agreement, usually some type of employee handbook as well, with company values and procedures in place for how your company runs day-to-day operations. And for 1099 contractors, that is the biggest thing that you absolutely need a contract for. That contract is basically the framework for you to agreeing that you are going to have an employer-contractor relationship and not an employer-employee relationship. So 1099 contracts can come from you as the business owner sent to this contractor, or most people in kind of the service industry, online service industry world, they're getting those contracts from the independent contractor, right? They have their own business. If you're hiring a bookkeeper, if you're hiring a graphic designer, a website designer, they're contractors for your business, but they're sending you an agreement, and there should be something in there surrounding that the work relationship is an independent contractor.
So they have not sent us an agreement. We need to make sure that we're sending them an agreement.
100%. Yep. I get this question basically every single day. That I want to hire this person. They haven't sent me a contract. What do I do? You can always, as the business owner, send an independent contractor agreement. It doesn't matter who it's coming from. It just matters that the agreement is in place between both parties.
Have you heard yourself saying, I'm scared to invest money in my business because what if it doesn't come back? I don't know how much to pay myself, so I won't take a paycheck yet. I'm reinvesting in the business anyway. Or how about, I'm not going to spend any more money until I know exactly where my money is going. Well, let me tell you, you are not alone. In fact, we have heard all of these stories and more throughout the last 9 years at Kickstart Accounting Inc. And that is why we have created the Money Mindset Mastery Framework to finally unlock and overcome these stories, to finally feel confident in your financial decisions and pay yourself what you deserve. The first step to create a profitable and successful business is to first understand your money mindset. Find out your money mindset personality type by going to kickstartaccountinginc.com/quiz. I can't wait to hear what your money mindset type is. What are we protecting from? Like, why is this such a big deal?
You're protecting from back taxes and penalties and legalities surrounding your business getting sued essentially by this particular worker. So contractors are very, very, very much different from employees because employees, they're qualified a certain way under the law. They are allowed to have benefits for working for you. The W-2 world and employee world, it's like a give and take. Your employees are going to give you more. You're allowed to have more control over them, but you also have to set them up correctly with certain benefits, with certain tax payments, with certain workers' compensation, unemployment insurance benefits. All of that is state and federally required for you to do. And so if you mistakenly qualify a contractor as a contractor when they should be an employee, they could come back and say, hey, I actually should be getting X, Y, and Z, and your business hasn't done it.
I've seen it happen. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like, I'll just take my risk. It's easy for me to pay a contractor. I don't want to set up payroll. I don't want to enroll with the state. And we can't let that be a roadblock. We really have to be responsible stewards of our business. At Kickstart, we set up payroll for our clients because we understand what a burden it can be to do things that you don't know how to do, but we have to be responsible. We had a client, and I want to hear a horror story from you too, but we had a client who she was paying all these contractors, and we had been telling her for over a year, they are not contractors, they are employees. She finally had one of them threaten her, and she had to pay back taxes, health insurance, and 401k contributions. It really disrupted the business and their cash flow.
Yeah. And not only that, when everything happens with taxes, I always tell people you're hiring a tax attorney to get into court and solve all of these issues, probably workers' comp court or UI, a litigation issue that's popping up. But the accountant is there to work with the lawyer. And then you're going to have everybody involved in your business. You're now not only dealing with money issues, but you're dealing with legal issues as well. So it's just always best to set them up and categorize them the right way. The name of the game is control here. So how much control do you have over the worker? Should they be an employee or a contractor? Contractors are great for kind of project by project basis, very, very much part-time work. You don't want to have a set schedule over them. They're probably not going to be as reliable as employees, but that's okay. A lot of us, I'm not saying you can't have contractors. You and I probably both have contractors and employees in our business. I do.
Yeah.
I just treat them very, very differently. Again, big projects like web design, graphic design, copywriting work, tax work, bookkeeping work. Those are all great contractors to have for your business. The main thing is, of course, they are independent by nature. They're called an independent contractor because they need to be independent from your business. So it's really difficult. The stickiest situations legally and tax-wise that pop up are just single individuals that you're hiring as a contractor where they don't necessarily have their own business. You're trying to say they're a contractor, but really they're probably just a part-time employee and you're trying to get around it. So be very, very careful with those and work with, your lawyer and your CPA to make sure that you're doing it correctly. And you can't have non-competes with 1099s as well. So that's a contractual document that lots of people think they can put in place with contractors, but you can't. A non-compete makes them not independent anymore. So
interesting. That can be really huge, especially for a service-based business owner.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can have some like very minor exclusivity provisions if you didn't want someone, say, working with a direct competitor of yours, but you can't restrict competition in, the service industry. They're independent. They should be able to work from whomever they want and whenever they want at any time of the day.
Yeah.
So again, they should be finishing projects by like a deadline, but definitely no like gear, equipment, those type of things. You're just falling under employee and just don't put yourself there. So core employees though are really awesome. As you mentioned, we both really like employer models. I think it's still a really great way to go in business, but with very, very specific workers. So they have a set schedule. It's either hourly or salary pay. Depending on your state, you can enforce a non-compete. There's a lot of restrictions surrounding non-competes. But for anyone listening that has associates or people working for them for a long period of time, and you have them on as contractors, just maybe start thinking about bringing them on as an employee because you might be able to set something in place there. Employees also just have a reputation for being more loyal to your business. There's more longevity with employees. And so it really depends on where you're at with your business. But again, if you're newer in business, this is all great knowledge to have. So just kind of lock it in the back of your head. And if you're a little bit more seasoned of an entrepreneur, take this as you move forward, as you grow and scale.
I've always said that as you develop as a business owner and you build more of a brand, standard operating procedures, SOPs, you naturally start to want to have more control. You want to provide equipment. You want to have a standard and for which your brand is going to operate. And so that's when we usually see people start to move from contractor to employee as they develop as business owners and want more control as a brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to put it.
All right. I want to talk about, we've talked on this podcast a lot about creating an LLC and how to pay yourself as an LLC, how to pay yourself when you become an S Corp, paying yourself as a reasonable compensation through payroll. But I thought it would be really helpful to have a legal perspective on this because we get asked all the time, I'm just a sole proprietor. Why can't I just stay that way? I feel like I'm complicating things. So why does somebody want to become an LLC and how does that have a contribution to how they pay themselves?
Yeah, a sole proprietor and LLC, there's really no difference in paying yourself for all intensive purposes. They're both pass-through taxation entities. LLCs, you just can't commingle funds. Really, the difference is all legal. It has very little to do with taxes. You're maybe like a box you're checking for tax purposes, but the numbers are all really going to look the same on paper once you hash them all out at the end of the year. A sole proprietorship for legal purposes is an arm and extension of yourself as a person. So everything is filed under your social security number. It's just coming through your personal taxes. A lot of times, like I said, it's commingling with your personal bank account and personal credit cards. Some people do at least do some due diligence at the beginning of getting a separate bank account set up. If you're a sole proprietor, it's not under an LLC. It's not under a different business entity. It's just a separate bank account. But that's good. If you're okay with, and I can't answer this in like a wide breadth answer because I don't know where you're at in business, how many clients you have, what type of services you're offering. All of that is going to lead me to be able to answer what are your risks and liabilities. That's what you need to figure out. Is your business a little bit risky? What are you taking on as a business owner? Also, what personal assets do you have that you want to protect? How much do you have in your personal bank account? If everything is commingled and is an arm and extension of yourself, if something were to happen, any client can go after everything. So everything you have. For people who are just starting out, I really want to drill this in, and I know I keep saying it. It's okay to be a sole proprietor. I don't want to have this blanket statement that you have to become an LLC. I think it's smarter legally, but I understand that being a sole proprietor makes sense for newer business owners. But I don't know when, usually it's near the beginning of your business, trajectory. And a lot of people want to just do all this at the beginning, which I think is best case scenario for people who are kind of jumping in more than just a side hustle. They're like really going at this business with all that they've got. That's when you want to separate the two. You want to separate your personal risks and liabilities from your business risks and liabilities. And so an LLC is just that. It's a separate business entity. It's through your state. It's not federal. And it's all about limited liability for yourself as a person. That's why it's called a limited liability company. So it's just this awesome entity form that is available here in the United States that is a little bit better for legal purposes than a sole proprietorship. It's a lot more professional, of course, because you're a registered business entity in your state. And then you are separating it's like a bubble effect is what I tell people. You're breaking the bubble and putting two different bubbles in place, your personal bubble over here and your business bubble over
I
here.
like that. I like that.
And it just helps people conceptualize the fact that I've worked really hard for whatever your personal assets are. And I don't want those disrupted by this business that I'm creating that I'm not sure what could potentially happen with a client.
That same risk we were talking about with insurance, right? I know as business owners, we can take on more risk than maybe the average person. It doesn't mean you should. And it doesn't mean we want to risk our personal savings, our homes, our vehicles. And I know, again, that accidental entrepreneur where we started this business kind of on accident. We had some friends and family asking us for help, then referrals. Oh, wait, hold on. I need to pause, separate, get the legal protection. So if you didn't set this up in day one, I just want to remind people it's okay to take a pause at any point to reestablish yourself as an LLC, get that legal protection, and really separate your business and personal assets.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because it's not like you have to do it at any point in time. You can do it at any point in time, which is great.
Yeah.
Now is the time I need to move away from this business that I kind of just started and wasn't sure what's going on, but now it is definitely more of a full-fledged business. Yeah. Like set yourself up as an LLC. When you said insurance, I like to tell people an LLC is the best insurance you can get for your business. That's why at the beginning of this episode, I said, get your LLC first, then your business bank account, then your insurance, then your contracts, because they all go hand in hand with one another. But your LLC is that first separation if something were to occur, right? Like your contracts are only going to help you so far as what is within those contracts and what everyone has agreed to within those contracts. Your contracts can't help you with a lot of negligent things that could pop up. That's where insurance comes in. And then if all else fails, we're looking at, okay, maybe your insurance pays a little bit, but you're still on the hook for other amounts. The LLC bubble in your LLC business bank account is the maximum amount that your risks and liabilities are up to. for any type of like payments or reimbursements that you may have to make in a legal sticky situation. They all go together. And that's why you and I really love LLCs, because why not have a very inexpensive insurance policy for your business that is long lasting by just registering in your state?
Thank you for all of that. I just really appreciate you being so clear and providing that guidance. Now, we have a lot of clients who are converting to S Corps, putting themselves on payroll. So let's just touch on clarification. It's really a way of how you're going to be taxed and pay for taxes. But is there anything from a legal perspective between LLC and S Corps?
Yes. So when people say they are an S Corp, that just means that that's how they're filing for tax purposes. An S corporation is only a tax designation. You are most likely an LLC that files as an S Corp. The LLC is how you are registered in your state. An S Corp is how you are designated for tax purposes under the IRS. It's a form that you fill out. So you're really both. And you want to be both. But hopefully that clears things up. I always tell people, like, you're not going to put the legal page, comma, S Corp on a contractual document.
Very true. Very true.
You're going to put the legal page, comma, LLC on a contractual document. That is how your business designation stands and how you are registered. That is a business entity. An LLC is a business entity, just like a corporation is, okay? Like Inc. You say that after people's business names. An S Corp is not a business entity. It's just a tax designation. So you need to be both.
Anybody wants more information on S Corps and the tax component of that, we did a whole podcast episode on that, episode 115. So go back on Entrepreneur Money Stories archives, episode 115, to go in deeper about the tax, how to pay yourself on payroll, how to determine reasonable compensation. But you heard it here. It doesn't change it from a legal perspective. I just want to touch on difference between LLC and C Corps from a legal perspective before we kind of leave this topic.
LLCs are just easier. They're easier for solopreneurs. C Corps, there's a lot more logistically that are involved in C Corps, different tax filings that you have to do. Of course, you're going to have managers, members, you're going to have to set up a board of directors. There's a lot of different things that you need to do with C Corps. Most entrepreneurs that are listening here, you're not going to be ready to be a C Corp. If you are thinking that that's the way to go, take a step back, talk to your CPA and your lawyer. Most people can just handle a small business with an LLC.
We don't need to go into double taxation from a tax perspective. Right. But I wanted to touch on the fact that there's not an additional legal protection as a C Corp versus an LLC.
Yeah, that's the name of the game here. An LLC is like this awesome little business entity that was created in the US. It's not available in a lot of other countries, which is really interesting.
It is interesting.
And a lot of other countries only have you're incorporated. You are a corporation. You will be double taxed. That is what we make businesses do in our country. And the US has really allowed kind of solopreneurs and small business owners to flourish under an LLC model because it is a pass-through taxation entity. It's like you have your cake and eat it too. You get to have this legal liability protection, but you also still don't have to file all these additional things, and you're not going to be taxed twice on your business profits and the amount that you're paying yourself. That's like the simplest way to put it, but there's a lot more tax-wise that I know you go into in your podcast.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Awesome. Is there anything that I have not asked you today that you wish I would have, or any other action for business owners to go take today?
No, I don't think so. I don't want to overcomplicate things for everyone. If you have any, specific additional questions regarding your business and kind of next steps that you need to take, a really great place to reach out to myself and my legal team is in our Facebook community. We have thousands of entrepreneurs in there that run very similar businesses, and we do get asked contractual and tax questions all the time. And because it's in a general forum, myself and my legal team are able to answer those there. So it's called the Legal Page Community on Facebook. That's a great place to ask questions. Otherwise, we can't answer one-on-one questions for lawyer reasons, legal ethics, and responsibilities. But that's why we love podcasts like this. This is why we love talking in more of an open forum space. You know, you and I, as a tax professional, a legal professional, can dish out a ton of information to people, you know, en masse versus doing things one-on-one. But we do answer questions a lot. So if you just have like a very simple question, that's a great place to go. And then you don't have to pay for an attorney to answer that question for you, which could be hundreds of dollars an hour.
That's a very valuable resource. So definitely go and join that Facebook group, because that is huge. And that is very generous of you. Where else can people follow you and stay in touch and look out for you and your team?
The legal page, paige.com. We have all kinds of additional resources, blogs. We have our own podcast, YouTube channel, and then Instagram as well. So I have all kinds of little small tidbit legal pieces on there. Sometimes we like to share like pop culture or what's happening, or like legal things that are popping up and my take on it and how to think about this from an entrepreneur, like small business owner standpoint.
Love it.
So that's kind of fun there as well. Just really wherever you feel like you like to get your information, we are usually on those platforms.
Yeah. Well, I follow you on Instagram. I love your guys' content. So go follow you there. All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thanks again.
It was so much fun to have Paige on the show to give us the legal perspective. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you need help, I highly suggest you reach out to Paige and her team. They are amazing at what they do, and they have become such an amazing resource for the Kickstart Accounting Inc. team and clients. If you need bookkeeping help, go to kickstartaccountinginc.com/book-a-call. We would love to be a resource for you in your business. And if you're not sure why you're avoiding these topics in your business, go to kickstartaccountinginc.com/quiz to find your money mindset personality type. I guarantee you it is going to shed some amazing light on your money mindset and how you approach these difficult topics, but important to be a successful business owner. All right. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will see you next week.